Do I have any children that would like to come up front today? Any friends that would like to come up? I promise I won't get you wet just yet. Alistair, are you going to hang out with me today? I got some cool stuff up here. Here we go. Heidi. Hey, buddy. Hey. James is soon, buddy. I promise. Hey, so here's a curious little thing. What do you make of this? There is water in that thing, yes. Do you know where that water comes from? The rain. Yes, in a way. This water actually was in that font right there this morning. And that font is where we're all baptized, right? Yep. And so what happens on days like today when there's no baptisms, but we need to renew our baptismal vows, is we take water out of there and we put it in here. And this thing has a really funny name. Well, this thing. This is the bucket. That's a bucket. We all know that. But this, I said, as I can tell. As you could tell, yes. Do you know what this is? This is called an aspergillium. Can you say that? Aspergillium. And just hold it like this and flick it. Yeah. Okay, yeah, almost. Give it a good flick. Almost. Maybe we got to get it right here. Heidi, give it a good flick. See how water came out of that? Now, we're not dunking anybody today for baptism, but we do. No, we're not doing that. But what we do when we renew our baptismal vows is water's got to be involved, right? And so this thing fills up with water, and when we go say the baptismal covenant together, I'll go, or I won't go, but Andrea will, because she's got a longer arm, and see if we can get Dad. See if we can get Dad. Nope, we can't get him. But this thing has some good reach. And so like water is going to be a part of renewing our baptismal covenant. This is an aspergillium, so I wanted you all to know that. But Heidi, how about you give me some of those cushions right there? How many? Well, there's 4 of us. Well, Miss Teresa gets one too. So Miss Teresa gets this one. Would you like this one? You can have this one. Yeah, and how do you get that one? Now, what is that in the middle of that cushion? What does that look like to you? A dog. Close. It's an ox with wings. And so that's the symbol for St. Luke, is an ox with wings. And the reason why it's an ox is because the ox was like the best sacrificial animal in the temple. And Luke writes a lot about the temple, so that's why we have an ox. What is that? Yes, an angel. Yes, very much so. This is a messenger, right? And it's a symbol for Saint Matthew. Saint Matthew. What about this? An ox? That one has more fur on it. What do you think? A dog? We like the dogs, but actually this is a lion. And the lion, it looks like a dog, but this one roars, right? And the lion is the symbol for Saint Mark. Miss Teresa, what does that look like? Yeah, some kind of bird. An eagle? Right, that is an eagle. And the eagle is a symbol for St. John. And do you know where there's another eagle in the church? You don't see it. Okay, I'll tell you where it is. It's in the chapel over there. And it's the lectern. And it's a big bird. And there's another eagle. You know what's cool about these? There was some ladies way back, that needle pointed every one of these. So someone sat down and made this entire cushion by hand. And you know what's also special about this is today in the Bible we hear about the 4 living creatures. If you read in the Bible, these are the 4 living creatures. I know. Crazy, right? Yeah. And that someone, it's not a creature. It is a human. You're right. You're right. Flip them over. Flip them over. These are the people. And so I think it's important to say their names. So we have E.K. Parker, made that in 1971. M.M. Beard, 1971. D.S. Lockhart, 1971. And C.G. Kane and M.R. Strait, 1971. Those are the people that made these for us to kneel on. And I think they're saints too. All right. Well, Miss Teresa's going to go tell you a story about some saints. So off you go. Somebody carry the banner. All right. Thanks, my friends. They're going to stay in here. Do you want to get the banner, Alistair? Go get that. He's being really quiet. Being really quiet today. Want to watch that for me, buddy? All right. Well, this past week has been wonderful at St. Luke's. We've had several church services this week. We took time to actually celebrate All Saints on All Saints, November 1st. We did that by celebrating Eucharist together. Everybody sort of sat in the choir up here. Instead of having it in the chapel, we had it at the high altar. There were flowers. It was dressed. We even had incense so that we wouldn't have incense today because I know how y'all love the incense. But it was good. We took time to pause and actually observe the feast on the day it's meant to be observed. And if you think about it, All Saints is the only baptismal feast between Trinity Sunday and Christmas that kind of breaks up this long season after Pentecost. And so when the church has these feasts during the week, sometimes it's really important that we observe them because it sort of breaks into our reality, right? It interrupts our lives, and it calls us back to the heart of God. And so I loved being able to celebrate it on the day. But also the prayer book gives us a provision to celebrate it on this day when the entire community can gather, which is really wonderful. And so we can bring in the choir in this one, and we have a great feast. And so it truly is one of the ways that we can celebrate on the day and then also observe it all together when we can't be in one place, during the week. That was Wednesday. On Thursday, we celebrated, we observed, All Souls Day. And All Saints and All Souls have kind of been conflated in history as it's kind of the same thing. But we learned together that they're kind of not, right? And so what we tried to do this week was separate them a little bit. And so we celebrated All Souls Day at Green Country. Both of the services, when you look at them, right? When you look at the readings that we have in here, both of these readings in both of these services are ones that are in the prayer book as ones that you can have at your funeral, right? Because All Saints is the feast that we recognize, right? The saints that have gone on before us. And I'm sure you've all heard this before. Big S's, right? The big saints, and little S's, right? But when I was looking for a definition of All Saints, or saints themselves, I was like, what is it? And the most basic one that I could find said that the saints of God are people who have given witness to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, whether it be big or little. And so that's a pretty basic definition, but the active word for that in that definition for me is witness. What is a witness? What does witness mean? Giving a witness to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. In some ways, I think All Saints, when it was first conceived, was about folks who had given their lives for the faith, given their lives for Jesus, right? So martyrs, right? And when this feast was originally celebrated, it was not even in November. It was actually on the day that we celebrate Trinity Sunday. And it just celebrated the martyrs of the church, or recognized the martyrs of the church. About a century later, one of the popes, decided to sort of bless a basilica for all the saints. And so saints were joined together with martyrs. And that happened on November the 1st. And in the Western church that we belong to, All Saints has been celebrated on November 1st ever since then. Right? And so, like, all the saints, I think, he was thinking of, like, Saint Bonaventure, right? Saint Augustine, right? But what about Saint Jeannie, right there, right? Saint Yovine, Saint Steve, right? What about those saints? The halo, it's there. It's there, my friend. It's there. What about Saint Jean? What about Saint David? Saint Max? What about those saints too? Today's the day. And when I thought about what witness meant, I was so happy that we had the Beatitudes today. Right? Rarely in a funeral service do you come across the Beatitudes. And so that's not one that's typically chosen. But I did preach it at a funeral one time. And that was the funeral for Mike Smith, another saint of God. I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but it's kind of a sign of God's sense of humor that I was the only person in Bartlesville that didn't know Mike Smith, and I got to preach at his funeral. That was hilarious. But I remembered talking to his mother after that service, and she said, Nick, you hit on something that I truly believe, and that was that Mike was a beatitude. And I never really thought about it like that. But when I think about giving witness in our lives, I wonder if we shouldn't try to be a beatitude. I mean, it's right there, right? Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. All of us have loved and lost. And how beautiful it is when community comes together and supports those who mourn. It is blessed. It is giving witness not only to the pain that is present, but also the love that is there. And we do that for and with each other in the name of Christ. And so it is giving witness to Jesus. I think in the collect it says, all virtuous and godly living, right? Living those teachings of Jesus, being blessed through them, is virtuous. It is godly living. And it is one of the joys of my heart to be able to see how those Beatitudes are lived out in you, in community, for each other and with each other. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you will be filled. How is that working in your life? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. I see many peacemakers here. One of the last things we did before closing out the week was to have Bible study together. And we took a chapter from Paul's letter to the Ephesians, and we read it aloud to one another. And in the end of this particular chapter, chapter 3, it gives it gives the congregation who's reading it a prayer to pray for spiritual strength. And it mentions in that prayer that not only are we to love God, but we are to be stewards of God's grace. And as we have talked for weeks about what stewardship actually means, it's not just about our money. Stewardship is multifaceted in that it involves our relationships. It involves gracious leadership. It involves truth, wellness, right? Many facets of stewardship. And our job as stewards is, of course, to offer time and talent and treasure, but it's to ensure that all of those continuously flow. And if we see where any one of those things is stopped, say for like instance, the currency of relationship, right? You're stewarding your relationship. If you notice that something is stopped, is to pursue that, to try to fix it, understand it, be reconciled, forgive each other, so that that can continue to flow. That's our job as stewards. Father Lee gave this congregation something wonderful. He raised up in you an identity that says that you love with arms wide open, and you do. Stewardship is how you love that love. And stewardship is also a beatitude. Comforting those who mourn, that increases or helps out the currency of relationships, yes? So when you begin to put these things together, it makes sense. When we offer each other love that is unmerited and unwarranted, it's a beautiful, beautiful, and powerful thing. I guess what I'm trying to say is I see in each one of you Christians who walk the walk and talk the talk. And I'm so honored to be amongst you. And so let me close with this prayer for spiritual strength for each one of you. For this reason, we bow our knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth takes its name. And I pray that according to the riches of his glory, he may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being with power through his Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, as you are being rooted and grounded in love. I pray that you may have the power to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, so that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. And now to him who by the power at work within us is able to accomplish abundantly far more than we can ask or imagine. To him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus to all generations, forever and ever. Amen.